Welcome back to another episode of the Live Your Yes Life podcast. My name is Lisa Limata. I am your host for today. I'm going to do a solo episode today. Normally, Kayla and I take turns, so she is also my co-host. And if this is your first time here, welcome. So happy to have you joining us for this podcast. So, what you can expect in future episodes is that we pop in here each week. Sometimes it's Kayla and I together, sometimes it's one or the other of us, and sometimes it's an interview. And we want to bring you topics, inspiration, information to help you live your version of your yes life, saying yes to the life that you want. Today, I want to share my story with you all. And it's a story about what it really takes to start over, whether you are starting over after divorce, you're starting over in your career. A lot of people that listen in, I know that many of you are entrepreneurs, and you might be leaving a really lucrative and successful career and feeling the call to jump into entrepreneurship or doing your own thing. And what it's really like to do this in midlife. This could happen at any age. For me, I was 44 when I decided to sell my business, went through a divorce, moved to a different state. And I want to share a little bit about my story so that you can learn from what I went through about what it takes to really have the courage to make that change. So, if you're facing any big decision in your life right now and you're just waiting for the courage, listen in. I'm hoping this will inspire you a little bit today. So, when I was 44, I made a massive change in my life, like completely pivoted from everything I was doing. And at that time, I was living in a different state than I'm living in now. I was in Wisconsin. I was running my own business, a business that had been very successful, raised my kids. I have two children, and now I have a stepdaughter, but at the time, two children. And during that time, everything seemed to shift and it seemed to happen rather suddenly, although looking back, it wasn't quite that way. So I was happy, from the outside in. It looked like I was very happy, very successful, but there was a lot going on inside for me that was leading me up to making this change. So, one thing that happened is my youngest went off to college. So, both of my children were, he was off to college. Kayla already at that point had graduated college. She was starting up in her own career. And suddenly it was different. I was on my own. I had gone through a divorce just a couple years prior to that and found myself really on my own, and my life was different. You kind of go through an identity shift when the kids get older and they don't need you in the day to day anymore. And what was also occurring during that time is my mom had a terminal illness. And the last 2 years prior to me selling my business, we knew that we were getting close to the end of her life and she needed more care and more support. And fortunately, at that point in my business, we were far enough along that I was able to step away from the business for a couple of days each week, at least, to be traveling back and forth to Michigan so I could really care for my mom and be able to have that time with her, which was such a gift and such a blessing when we get our businesses to that stage where it doesn't require us to be there every moment of every day. So I was able to do that. But of course, I was making that drive back and forth and just really struggling as I watched my mom navigate this time in her life and really navigating the end of her life, all the decisions that had to be made, being a caretaker, right? Part of, stepping into what I believe they call like the sandwich generation, where you're caring for your children and you're also caring for your parents. And I don't think we talk about it enough because it takes a huge emotional toll, right? It feels like a lot of responsibility and it's also just a lot of emotional tugs on your heart. So at that time, once my youngest had gone off to college, I was like, I feel like something is shifting. I feel like this chapter of running my business, being here in Wisconsin might be complete. Like I think it's complete. I think I'm done. And I feel like maybe it's time for me to think about what's next, which kind of surprised me because I actually really loved it so much. And it was a really hard decision for me to make, but it was just one of those things like, when you know, and you're not even sure why it's almost like you can't not. So I started to take steps to think about selling the business. So long story short, what ended up happening for me is there was this culmination that happened all in one week. I ended up selling my business, making a move back to Michigan where my mom was, and she passed away in that exact same week that I made the move and my business sold. So it was like taking a chapter in a book and slamming it shut, right? It's like everything I knew, everything that was familiar for me just shifted within a matter of a week. And I felt really lost. It was such a strange time in my life to go through because everything that my identity was tied to had shifted. And so I had to, for the first time, start to think about like, who am I now? So if you're listening to this, I know that a lot of us, maybe it's not always that dramatic for everyone, but I talk to so many people my age who are like, yeah, I'm really feeling that. I'm really feeling, what it means to have the kids be on their own and to not need me as much, and like to actually have the freedom to think about what I want to do next. And there's a real gift in that as well. So many of our clients are in this stage of life where, they have stepped into this new chapter of really celebrating that they get to start over. They get to pursue, what their dream life is. And for many of them, it's starting over as an entrepreneur. So maybe you're considering leaving your corporate job, or maybe like me, you're considering selling your business, or you're just feeling like you've got to make a change. Maybe you've already made it, but you're looking at the courage to just really be all in and to really, to step fully into that business. So it's a process, right? And if you're feeling in that space, what I want to say is what I wish I would have known sooner was to simply keep following that still small voice that is guiding you. Pay attention to what you're really drawn towards, to what is lighting you up. Because the voices in our head about how we should do it and about how, we're making really good money over here and it'd be like wrong to leave something that's so lucrative, or, maybe we have people in our life who don't support us. Those voices can be really loud. So we've got to trust that still small voice within us. That's our intuition, which is guiding us to where we are meant to go. And I will tell you that there is a process to this. So for me, I really had to take the time to grieve. I had to grieve the life that I had. I was grieving my mother. I was grieving being an empty nester, all of my friends, that I left behind when I sold the business and made the move. Like there was just so much that I felt like I was grieving. And I didn't really initially give myself a lot of space for it. Like I jumped right into doing another business. It wasn't necessarily a soul business. It was just kind of like, okay, this will be fun for now and I've got to do something. And, it was a way of distracting myself. Quite honestly, it was a way of keeping myself busy so I didn't have to feel. However, my body is what really forced the change when I went through that. I really had a physical health breakdown where, all the years leading up to me making this move and selling my business, you guys, I had been working so many hours. I had been taking care of everything and everyone except for me. Wasn't getting enough sleep. I was in a massively high state of stress for years and years and years. And like our bodies are just not, we're not meant to have our foot on the gas pedal going 90 miles an hour for years and years at a time. And that's what I was doing. And I really had to come to terms with that. I had to go through full and total burnout, a complete health crisis. And so the next 2 years after I made the move was really about healing. It was about grieving. It was about healing. It was about learning how to take care of myself and my body. And I went through a full-on spiritual awakening during that time. And it was not pretty and it was not easy. And so, maybe you're someone out there listening. Maybe you've navigated your own, sort of dark night of the soul or awakening, whichever you want to call it. Or maybe you feel like you're in that now. And I was just having this conversation with a client before I recorded this podcast. Like there's a season for everything and we can't bypass the season. It just doesn't work. We have to be willing to feel the grief and to go through the shift, because that's the only place that we truly can get the clarity and the courage to step into what's next. So I think it's really important that we accept the season we're in. If we're fighting against it, if we're trying to distract ourselves, and partly this is what I did, was jump into something else, but it wasn't soul aligned. It was just like the next easy thing. And so we've got to be willing to feel those feels and not distract ourselves away from it, to really allow ourselves to become something new, right? To follow that soul's purpose. So for me, what ended up happening through this is clarity came through, right? It was like one of those middle of the night, wake you up sort of very lucid dreams that I don't know. Was it a dream? Was it reality? I don't know. I'm going to call it a dream so you don't think I'm crazy. But I woke up in the middle of the night and I think it was like a lucid dream, like saw this woman standing. I was like in my bed, in my bedroom, saw this woman standing in the doorway. And she kind of looked like a 1920s aviator. Like she had curly hair. If you're old enough to know who like Ms. Frizzle is, some of you won't know what I'm talking about, but some of you will. Kind of had that look and like aviator goggles on. And all she said to me was, "Are you ready for adventure?" And I sat up in my bed and she was gone. And that was it. She was gone. So I'm like, okay, that was a wild dream. I am never eating tacos before bed again. Like that was insane. I'm losing my mind. Like now I'm going crazy. Like seriously, that was just such a bizarre experience. But, after that, I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was like, what was that? Was that a dream? And what did that even mean? And so I ended up just getting up out of bed. It was 3:30, came upstairs to my office and I sat on the floor, grabbed my laptop, and I don't know how this happened. I feel like it was just like the first thing I like popped open on my laptop, found this coaching program that I ended up going to that ended up starting me down this whole journey. Like that 3:30 in the morning surfing the internet time was a complete life-changing experience that led me to being here talking to you today, believe it or not. So I feel like it's just being open to that guidance and paying attention to the signals. And so I'll fill in the story for you guys a little bit. So I ended up at that point, I had already taken, life coach training. I was training on the weekends while I still had my business. I was driving to Chicago on the weekends and, taking my training was a leadership training so that I could really be a better leader and coach at work. And after this whole journey I went on, I was like, I really want to bring a health aspect into this so I can help my clients also improve their health. So the first thing I did was I went to this health coaching school. And this is where I met my community, I met my people. I ended up going on to take some advanced and mastery life coach training in the process. And long story short, just fell in love with this career. Like I knew that I knew that I knew this was my soul work to do. And I won't go into the whole story now. I don't want this to get any longer. You've probably heard the story of how Kayla and I ended up working together a few years after that, right after I'd already had my clients. But I wanted to share the story with you today because I have been talking to so many people who have either made this shift into a second career and are feeling all of the worry and the discomfort and will I make it and can I afford it and all of the questions that come along with it. And now what happens is I work with entrepreneurs. Initially I started off health coaching. All of my health coach clients were entrepreneurs. Go figure. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, right? So we started coaching about their health, but really what we ended up coaching on was having them step into their purpose and step into their dream and do the thing that was on their soul and become entrepreneurs and start their own business. And so that's how I got here having this conversation with you, is really working with people to follow their soul, to follow their higher self, those middle of the night dreams that wake you up, that won't be quiet and let you settle for good enough, right? Because we're not here in this lifetime to settle for good enough. We're not here to just get by. Right now we're here in this one lifetime and you are meant to have every single incredible experience that you want to have. You are the creator of your life. And you get to decide. You get to decide. You get to write the story. You're holding the pen in your hand. And if you want to have a success story as you step into this next chapter of your life, you get to decide that and you get to create it. And it's my soul's work to help people do that, to help people step into their soul's purpose and their dream. And I'm going to be hosting or co-hosting a masterclass along with Kayla. It starts on April 14th. So if you're listening to this at the time that it comes out, it's happening on April 14th. You can jump into this free masterclass with us. And this is for you if you are that person. If you are like me and you're someone who is ready to make a change and a shift and you want to create success in this next chapter of your life. So we titled this masterclass Cash Clients, and it's a bit of a spin on Duck Duck Goose, because often what happens is when we're creating from anxiety, when we're wondering if am I going to be able to make it, we end up playing a game of chase, just like we do with Duck Duck Goose. And it feels like we're chasing clients, chasing cash, but there is a better way. There is a much better way, and we're going to teach you what we have done. This is our 7th very successful year in business now. We're going to teach you what we have done as entrepreneurs again and again and again, whether together, whether in my business before, how I have consistently created success as an entrepreneur. We're going to teach you what we call the divine profit method, and it is our strategy that we use on repeat. And it's not just a strategy of how to get clients. There's also an energetic component that is really important, because I no longer build from burnout. I no longer build from, putting tons and tons of stress on myself and burning the candle at both ends. Now I know how to build in a way that is sustainable, that I get to have vitality, that I get to be the creator of my story, and get to have so much joy doing the work that I know in my soul I'm meant to do every single day. So if you want to come and join us, it's totally free. As I said, you can click the link below this video. And if you're listening to this after the masterclass is over, I just want to tell you, we at least once a month, we are doing free masterclasses. There's ways to come in and connect with us and interact with us. And you can always book a call with our team as well. We love to open up calls throughout each month where you can talk to one of our coaches and really, have some strategies, have a sit down to talk about, what we offer in terms of programs, but also our coaches are really skilled. During those calls, they get right to the heart of what it is that you want to create and what's in your way. So even if you don't come in and, decide to take one of our programs, you will walk away from one of those calls just feeling so clear on what your next steps are. Those are free, by the way, as well. So we'll offer them as long as we can. We just have a limited amount each month. And of course, there's other ways to be inside of our community. But I just want to thank you for listening today. You guys, I love hearing from you. So if my story resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram. That's generally where I hang out. Send me a DM, or you can send me an email, lisa@riseleadershipcircle.com, and let me know how I can support you. Let me know if this touched you in some way. And as always, we will see you next time on the Live Your Yes Life podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in.